A little over $2,000. That's what one of these scopes costs. A guy dropped it 15 times, walked to the target, and wrote 3 words: total and complete failure. The other scope costs about $300. It took the exact same 15 drops on the exact same day, and the bullets kept landing where they were supposed to. One of them is a Leupold. The other is a fixed 6-power SWFA that costs less than the sales tax on the Leupold. And I'm going to do something with that gap that the review sites won't. I'm going to tell you exactly what that test proves, exactly what it doesn't, and where the expensive scope earns its money anyway. Because there is a real answer buried in here, and it is not expensive bad, cheap good. That's the lazy version. And the lazy version will steer you just as wrong as the marketing will. I sold optics across a retail counter for years. I rang these scopes up, I mounted them, and I watched which ones came back, and which customers came back a lot quieter than they left. I read the spec sheets and the warranty cards that never make it into the box, the numbers that get written for the marketing team and not for you. So let me walk you through the thing the customer standing at my counter never got to see. Here's what you have to understand first, before you get angry at anybody. One scope failing is nothing. Scopes are machines. Machines have bad units, and a bad unit is a warranty claim, not a story. If this were one Leupold that got dropped on its head at the factory, I wouldn't be talking about it. It'd be a Tuesday. It's a story because it is not one scope. It's a pattern, and the pattern doesn't match the price tags at all. I'll give you the version I watched play out more than once from behind the counter. A guy buys a good rifle, buys expensive glass to sit on top of it, and a season later, he's back, frustrated, convinced the barrel is shot out because he cannot keep a group on paper to save his life. So we'd pull the scope, drop a known good one in its place, and send him back out to sight in. And the rifle would suddenly shoot like a laser. It was never the barrel. It was the $2,000 scope coming apart quietly on the inside, one hunt at a time. He'd spent a whole season blaming his rifle, and a good chunk of it blaming himself. There's a hunter, goes by the handle Formidilosis, on a backcountry hunting forum called Rock Slide, who got tired of watching good shooters miss animals they had no business missing. Not because they can't shoot, because their scope quietly walked off zero somewhere between the truck and the trigger, and nobody could ever prove it in the moment. You just feel like you choked. You blame yourself. You drive home quiet. So he built a test, and then he did the part that matters. He published all of it. Every step, the torque values on the rings, the ammo, photos of every single target. Anybody can read it. Anybody can copy it. It is sitting on the open internet right now for free. And the test isn't complicated, and it isn't abuse. He mounts the scope correctly, zeroes it, then drops the rifle onto a padded mat. 18 inches first. One drop on each side. A shot after each one to check zero. Then he does it again from 36 inches. Then 3 more drops per side from 36. 15 drops total. And 36 inches is not a stunt. 36 inches is about the height a rifle falls from when it slides off the tree you leaned it against to take a leak. It's the sling that lets go. It's the gun bearer that wasn't latched. It's a normal bad moment in a normal season. After the drops, he checks 2 more things. Does the scope come back to zero when you dial the turret up and back down? And does it track? You dial 10 mils. Does your bullet actually move 10 mils? Or does it move 9 and lie to you? That's the whole test. Nothing a hunting scope shouldn't survive on the worst day of an ordinary year. He's run dozens of scopes through it. Dozens. And that's where the price tags stop making sense. The Leupold VX-6HD, the 318x44, and I want to be precise because precision is the entire game here. This is the first generation version, the one he tested, and it started telling on itself before he ever dropped it. Zeroing the thing was the old dance every counter guy already knows by name. The Leupold shuffle. Shoot, adjust, shoot, adjust, shoot, adjust. And it still won't quite sit down where you sent it. Then he went to the drops. On the single drops, it crept a little. On the 9 drops from 36 inches, it left the target completely. He fired again to find where it went and watched bark fly off a tree a couple of feet to the side of where he was aiming. That's the scope, doing that on its own. After a fall, it should shrug off. His 3 words for it: total and complete failure. A little over $2,000 at retail. And it wasn't a fluke of one bad unit, because on that same day, he ran the bigger brother, the 318x50, and it did the same ugly thing. A shift you'd measure in feet, not inches, at 100 yards. But the one that stays with me is the smaller Leupold, the VX-3HD, the 3.5 10x40, because that scope lost its zero before he dropped it a single time. It walked off just from riding 8 or 9 miles in the backseat of a truck down a Forest Service road. No fall, no bang, nothing hit it. A truck ride on a dirt road moved the point of impact enough to miss a deer's vitals at 400 yards. And it wasn't done. He ran the return to zero check. Dial the turret up, dial it back down. Does it land where it started? And on 3 separate rounds, it came back far enough off that it would have missed a deer's vitals at 400 yards. That's with nobody dropping anything. That's just the dial refusing to keep its word. Then the very first 18-inch drop shifted at 2.5 MOA, and after that the groups went random. 3 rounds tight, then a flyer a foot out, for no reason a shooter could see. His words, "The Erector is busted," and here's the kicker, the part that tells you it's the design and not the dice. He sent that scope back to Leupold. They serviced it. It came back. He mounted it again, zeroed it again, dropped it again, and it failed again, the same way it failed the first time. When the repair doesn't take, you are not looking at a bad unit anymore. You're looking at a bad scope. Let me tell you what the Erector is, because it's the whole mechanism, and once you see it, you can't unsee it on your own rifle. The Erector is the tube inside the scope that holds your crosshair. The turrets don't move the glass. They push that inner tube around, and it floats on springs. When the springs, or the structure holding that tube, can't keep it locked under a shock, the tube shifts. And your point of impact shifts right along with it. You didn't touch a dial. You didn't do anything wrong. The rifle just re-zeroed itself while you weren't looking, and it will not tell you that it did. You find out when you're standing over a blood trail, or when there's no blood at all. Now, here is the part that kills the excuse before you can even make it. Because your first instinct is going to be, fine, then just spend more. Buy your way out of it. He put a Trijicon Credo 3.9, a normal, mid-priced hunting scope, the kind of thing most people picture when they picture a scope, into the exact same rings, on the exact same rifle, and dropped it the exact same way. It held. The group opened up a touch, which is honest, but the zero stayed put, and the scope stayed functional. Same rings, same rifle, same drops. One held, one didn't, and the one that held cost a fraction of the one that didn't. That's the detail that ends the argument, that the test is rigged against expensive glass. It isn't rigged against expensive. It's just measuring something expensive doesn't buy. Stay with me, because I'm going to give you 3 things before this is over, and I don't want you to click off with only the anger. 1. The list of scopes that pass this test again and again, by model, not by brand. And that distinction is going to matter more than anything else I say. 2. The honest case for spending the $2,000 anyway, which genuinely exists, and I'll make it for them better than their own ad copy does. And 3. The exact point on the price curve where paying more stops buying you a single thing that keeps your zero. That number is the most useful thing in this whole video. Hang on for it. So, back to that $300 scope that beat a $2,000 one. It's a fixed 6-power SWFA SS. No zoom, 1 magnification, forever, take it or leave it. And it goes through this test like it's bored. Guys who own them call them bomb-proof, and they're not exaggerating. And I'm not going to pretend that scope is a free lunch, because it isn't. Fixed 6 power means you get 6 power and nothing else. No dialing down to 3 to swing on something close in the timber. No cranking up to 18 to read a rack across a canyon. The glass is fine, not gorgeous. The objective is small, so it gives up a little of that last light edge the big Leupold owns. You are trading every feature on the menu for exactly one thing. It holds. For a lot of hunters, that's a bad trade, and I'd tell them so. For some, it's the only trade that matters. Just go in, knowing that's the trade you're making. But watch what I do here, because this is exactly the move the lazy version skips. SWFA also makes an ultralight model, the SS UL, the 2.5 10, with a zoom and a lighter body. That one failed. Same brand, same 3 letters on the tube. Different scope, different guts, different result. So if I stood here and told you SWFA good, I'd already be lying to you, because one SWFA is a tank and another SWFA is not. It is never the logo on the tube. It is the specific model. Write that on your hand. Somebody eventually sat down and ran the actual statistics on all of these evaluations, and the numbers back up the pattern. By model, 3 brands separate cleanly from the pack for durability: Trijicon, SWFA, and Nightforce. Nightforce clears the bar at 91% confidence. Trijicon and SWFA up near 99. Those 3 keep passing, sample after sample. But before you turn 3 brand names into a shopping list, here's the single most important thing in this whole video. And it's the thing almost every ranking floating around online gets wrong. And here is where I have to be dead straight with you, because this is exactly where a dishonest video would leave something out to make the villain look worse. Leupold and Vortex both came back, no different from the market average. Now, that sounds like a defense of them, and for Vortex, it is not one, because they only tested 2 Vortex scopes, 2 units. You cannot clear a brand and you cannot condemn a brand on 2 units. The honest read of the Vortex result is not, Vortex is fine. It's, nobody put enough Vortex through this to say anything at all, and the 2 that did go through missed a lot. Don't let anyone, including me, tell you that data says more than it says, and it cuts the other way just as hard. A brand can sit near the bottom of a list on average and still build one model that's a genuine tank. The average buries the exception every time. You watched it happen inside a single brand a minute ago. One SWFA is bomb-proof, another SWFA fell apart. Same 3 letters on the tube, opposite result. That's the rule in miniature. A logo is not a durability rating. It's a company that makes a dozen different scopes, and some of them hold and some of them don't. And the badge on the outside tells you almost nothing about which is which. So anytime somebody waves a brand tier list at you like it's scripture, remember exactly what it can and can't tell you. It's a starting point, not a verdict on a logo. The only unit that matters is the exact model sitting on your rifle. Which brings us to the question that actually matters. The only one, really. If a $300 fixed scope holds 0 through 15 drops, and a $2,000 scope does not, what exactly is the $2,000 buying? And the answer is the trick, because it is buying real things. It's buying better glass. More light at last legal light, when the minutes are bleeding out and the buck is standing in the shadow under the timber, and you've got 120 seconds to decide. It's buying magnification you can dial from 3 power to 18. It's buying an illuminated dot, a turret you can run out to distance, a lighter tube, a nicer feel in your hands at the counter. Those are real. That fixed SWFA has almost none of them. If you put the Leupold and the SWFA side by side at dusk and just looked through them, the Leupold would win, and it wouldn't be close. What the $2,000 is not buying, what it was actually never promised to buy, is 0 retention through a fall. Read the box on a premium hunting scope sometime. Waterproof, fogproof. Leupold will tell you every scope they make survives at least 5,000 impacts on a machine they call the Punisher, at 3 times the recoil of a .30 caliber rifle. And that is true. It is a real test, and it is not a small one. It just measures the wrong failure, because recoil and a drop are 2 completely different punches. Recoil is the scope getting shoved straight back in a line, the same direction every single time. Thousands of clean, predictable hits. That's the punch everybody designs for, and it's the number everybody prints on the box. A drop is the opposite kind of hit. It's sideways. It's random. It comes in on an angle nothing was braced for. The fall off the tree, the tip off the truck seat onto the floorboard, the slide down the rocks. And the recoil test never touches that axis. So a scope can pass 5,000 rounds of recoil and still lose its 0 the first time it lands wrong on its side. Those are not the same test, and the maker only shows you the one the scope wins. And here's the tell. Every maker will print the recoil number for you. Not one of them prints a drop and hold 0 number on the box. The only public drop test on the entire internet is run by one hunter on a forum, on his own dime, with his own ammo. The companies charging you $2,000 could run it tomorrow, film it, and post the results. They don't. A test this cheap to run should not be this hard to find. Sit with why it is. That's what this channel does. Puts the tests next to the price tags nobody wants next to each other. Subscribe and I'll keep doing it. Now, I promised you honesty, and honesty means I make the case against everything I just told you, out loud, as hard as its own defenders would. Because it exists, and you deserve to hear it before you go rip a scope off your rifle. This test has critics, and some of them know optics far better than I ever will from behind a counter. The strongest objection is the sample size, and it's a good one. Most of these scopes get tested once, 1 unit, and 1 unit failing does not prove the model is bad, any more than 1 unit passing proves it's good. Factories have bad days, and a single scope is a single scope. There's a well-regarded optics guy named Ilya Koshkin, who argues that a scope's internal zero, actually shifting on its own, the Erector really moving, almost never happens the way the forum makes it sound, and that a lot of what gets blamed on the scope is really the mount, the rings, or the bedding underneath it. Others have pointed out that the test isn't always run in front of a camera, and that a couple of the failures got called on thin evidence. A few rounds thrown, not a real 20-round group. Those are fair hits. Take them seriously. I do. Here's what keeps me paying attention to it anyway. Start with how the test rifle is built, because it answers the mount objection head-on. The action is bonded to the chassis, and the rail is part of the receiver, so the rifle itself physically cannot shift. No stock flex, no base creeping. Good rings, torqued right, won't move without tearing up the rail first, which means when the point of impact walks, it walked inside the scope. There is nowhere else for it to have come from. And that same test rifle passes with Night Force, with SWFA, with Trijicon, over and over and over, sample after sample. If the rig or the mounting were the real problem, those scopes would shift too. They don't, only certain ones do, on the same rig, the same day. And the guy running it has handed embarrassing results to companies that pay to advertise on his own forum, and clean results to companies that can't stand him. If he's cooking the books, he's cooking them against his own wallet, which is a strange way to run a con. So here's where I land. Here's what I'd tell you if you set a rifle on my counter and asked, if you hunt inside 200 yards off a stand in the timber and you check your zero at the start of the season, you are mostly fine, and most of these failures will never once touch your life. That's the truth, and anybody who scares you, clean off your rifle over a forum test, is selling you something too. Even the man who runs the test says the plain part out loud. The "I don't drop it much" defense doesn't hold, because a broken scope is broken from the start, not worn out over time. But the flip side of that is real too. If yours works, it works. A scope that's held your zero for 6 seasons is not going to suddenly betray you because a stranger on the internet dropped a different one. The people who should actually care are the people who dial. If you hunt the West, if you stretch a shot past 300 yards, if your rifle rides hard miles in a side-by-side and takes the falls that come with steep country, the failure I've spent this whole video describing is your exact failure. It is the missed bull in the last 10 minutes of legal light. It's the gut shot you will blame on yourself for a year before you ever find out the scope moved on you. There's a story hunters trade about an episode of a hunting show where a guy dropped his rifle on an elk hunt, lost his zero, and then missed that animal over and over until he ran out of bullets and had to borrow another rifle to finish it. I can't verify what happened out there. That's a story off a TV screen, not a test. But every hunter who's dialed a turret in bad country feels it in their stomach because they know it's possible. So for you, the one who dials, here's the buying rule, and it's simple. Stop shopping the logo. Shop the model. Shop the specific ones that pass this thing on repeat. The fixed SWFAs, the right Trijicons, the Night Forces that keep clearing the bar. And here is the knee in the curve, the number I promised you at the top. Once you're on a model that holds zero, spending more only buys you glass, weight, and features. It stops buying you zero retention entirely. A $400 scope that holds and a $2,000 scope that holds will both put the bullet exactly where you aimed it. Past the price where a scope reliably holds, every extra dollar is buying you a prettier view of the animal, not a surer hit on it. That's the knee. Know which side of it you're standing on before you hand over a card. And if you love the Leupold glass, and it is beautiful glass, the best low-light view in this entire conversation might honestly be sitting on the very scope that failed the drop. Then buy it knowing exactly what it is. Buy it for the close timber and the dusk. Check your zero often, and check it after anything rough. And keep the receipt, because the lifetime warranty is real, and they will fix it for free for as long as you live. That warranty is the last card they'll play, and it's a good card, so let me play it for them and then walk it all the way out. Break the scope, they replace it, no charge, forever. That's a genuinely strong promise, and most cheap scopes don't offer it. But follow it to the end of the hunt. The warranty fixes the scope. It does not rewind the season. It does not bring back the elk you drew a tag 5 years to get, that you missed at last light because your zero moved and nothing told you. Leupold will make you whole on the hardware. Nobody in this business makes you whole on the hunt. So here we are, back where we started. A little over $2,000 and 3 words. Total and complete failure. $300 and 15 drops that didn't move it an inch. Same test, same day. The expensive scope is not a scam. The glass is real. The warranty is real. The recoil test is real. The trick, if you want to call it a trick, is quieter than a scam. It's that this whole industry will sell you every kind of tough, except the one kind that saves your hunt, and then leave the only test that measures that kind to a stranger on a forum with a bag of ammo and a padded mat. Price buys you a better look at the animal. It does not buy you the shot. Those are two different things, and they've been wearing the same price tag your whole life. Next time, I'm putting the whole field in order, best to worst, every model that's been through this, so you can find your scope on the list before you ever spend $1. Until then, shop the model, not the badge, and check your zero.